bringing in a dog that is known to not particularly be good with other dogs, is known to be resource guarding, has had fights with other dogs in the past. Those are kind of dogs that you're going to say, well, okay, that is going to, that is going to take quite a lot of work, and there's no guarantee at the end that your dogs will live, in harmony. But the other thing is, if I've got a keyed up dog that's quite tense and nervous, I don't really think it's a good idea to bring another dog who's tense and nervous as well.
Yeah.
You're probably looking to say, well, it would probably be a better fit if the dog that I bought in, was a little calmer or a wee bit more resilient. The same with if you've got a really young dog that's very excitable. Do you really want another very young dog that's excitable? Yes, they'll keep each other entertained and play, but there's a level there that becomes very difficult because you've got two that are very similar.
Yeah.
So
I think the flip side of that can be sometimes people get a second dog when their first dog is getting older.
Yes.
And then you can have problems with the youngster having too much energy and a different interest in what they'd like to do than the older dog. Yeah. I mean, I know with mine, even though it's not strictly age related, I have two that would much rather stay in bed, and the terrible trio who want to be doing stuff with me, who are out in the garden charging up and down, looking for squirrels to bark at, supervising the gardening, helping dig holes and all the rest. And those three form a little posse and they do stuff together. But if I had one of those three plus one of the other two, their needs would be very, very different.
Absolutely.
So that would be quite hard to reconcile as a dynamic, in terms of, if you think of an older dog maybe wanting to just potter around and mooch and snooze, and the younger one needs more entertainment.
Exactly. And I think that, there is the case of some older dogs seem to get a new lease of life when a younger dog is brought in as well. And I think it's about knowing your existing dog. Yeah. And being honest about that. I mean, it's not really fair if you've got an older dog whose health isn't great, and then you bring a very bouncy, dog in who isn't going to leave that older dog alone. Or perhaps you've got a dog who is very tolerant, absorbs a lot, takes a lot, who will never ever tell the youngster to stop. And then do they find that the remaining years are spent being pestered by another dog? There's lots of things to consider, but that doesn't mean to say that you can't do it. It just means that you've got to think about it, and you've got to be prepared to manage it if it needs managing. And not expect that the older dog is going to just have to put up with it all. The same as some dogs, the resident dog, the person goes and gets a puppy and expects that the resident dog will love this puppy, and of course the dog is trying to kill it, because it's just like, you are not on my radar of things that I want to be bothered with. So it's about kind of knowing your own dog, trying to find out as much about the other dog or dogs as possible. And you'll never ever be 100% sure. There's always, as things move along, dynamics change, and you've got to adjust that. And so you're never ever going to get it exactly right, but you could avoid getting it disastrously wrong. I think is the key answer.
I hear what you're saying about choosing the dog that you are drawn to. I think that can be a very difficult scenario, because especially when you're looking at rescue dogs, adult dogs where they have established some personality already, because certainly when you go to look at a greyhound rescue, there will be dogs who you are drawn to. There will be dogs that have what I think of as read the marketing book and they sell themselves. And those are often the dogs that come up and lean on you and want to give you a cuddle, that interact with you. And they may be the ones you're drawn to, but they may not be the ones that your dog is drawn to. And then if you end up getting a dog that you are drawn to, then your dog may struggle with them for some reason. But you can have the flip side as well, and you choose the dog that your dog chooses, and then you may have trouble bonding with them. And I know I've been to get a dog in what to me has been a hurry, when my numbers got to a point where it was, oh gosh, I need another dog quickly. And I've gone and we've pretty much taken the first dog that seemed to get on with my dogs that were left. And I really struggled to bond with them because they were not the dog I would have picked. Yeah. And although they were a perfectly nice dog, I didn't feel a connection. I found that remarkably difficult to try and build a connection with them when there had not been something, whereas most of my others, there had been a connection. And it was like, it's you, it's going to be you. And if that isn't there, I think that can make the settling in harder as well, because you still love them, but you don't have quite the same spark about it. It's hard to describe, actually. But
yeah, I think that happens often. You know, people, especially if they've lost their dog, for instance, and they decide, you know, for whatever reason, we have to get another dog, and they get a dog, and that dog maybe isn't their old dog, their older dog, the one they lost. They're expecting sometimes to feel and have that connection that they built over time. And of course, they don't have it. And so therefore, it's like there's something missing and, you know, in this relationship. And it's really interesting because there's quite a few papers actually that talk about why people pick particular dogs. And there is some of it that's about, you know, they tug at your heartstrings because they do remind you of another dog. They have a similar look or a similar trait, or they did something that your previous dog did. And actually, our choosing of dogs, I think, is not so much around the head, and I think it is around the heart. And you know, and people will say to me, yeah, but that dog chose me. So that seems to be something as well that people will say, yeah, but that, you know, that dog chose me. They were the one that came forward.
Yeah, but they're the ones that have read the rule book, that know how to sell themselves. And I always feel for the ones that haven't learned to do that, that can't do that, because they're the ones that get overlooked, because almost every time you see people will pick the one that sells themselves, the one that puts themselves forward, that offers for a cuddle, that looks them in the eye. And of course, the ones like my Jimmy that just couldn't, they're never going to get a home.
Exactly.
You couldn't even get him out of his kennel, let alone have him introduced to someone.
That's exactly the problem. And I'm the opposite. You see, if I see a dog that's been there for a long while, or that's been returned, that's a dog that I'm going to go, well, maybe I could, you know. So I think that, you know, we've all got that. We have to be aware of it. It's not wrong. It just, we have to be aware of it. And our dogs, definitely our resident dogs, they need time to be able to adjust to this new dog coming in. They need time to get to know them. And they need to feel, I think, that their life is not turned upside down for this other dog who's come in. Because quite often, all the attention is on the puppy. All the attention is on the new dog. People come to visit the puppy and they come to visit the new dog. And the existing dog is just, you know, gets maybe a cursory pat. But at the end of the day, they're there to see the new dog. So I think that for existing dogs that are in the household, they've had things in a particular way, they've done things in their own way, or they've got used to you, and now this is a new set of circumstances. Now, if you get a dog that comes in and is very pushy, and bolshy and starts to bully the resident dog, then that's not fair. It's not fair on the resident dog. And unfortunately that does happen. So when I work with cases where it's dogs that have started to fight and they've been from the same family, I would say, in my experience, and I don't have figures to back it up, but in my experience, I would say 9 out of 10 of all of those cases, it is the newcomer that has started it. The resident dog has not been the one that started the issue. So I think that because the resident dog is expected to adjust and adapt, and the new dog coming in perhaps gets lots more fuss, lots more attention, lots more focus, I think that then you see a bit of a shift in the dynamic between them.
Look out for new videos every Monday, and why not subscribe so you don't miss out?